In our beautiful year of 2025, we've come a long way from the beginnings of college football. I mean, we have scheduling blunders every year, and we tend to get upset whenever the big teams schedule schools like Mercer and Chattanooga so early in the season. And while some people get upset about the strength of conference schedules, I think we can be grateful that we are in an age where teams are playing Mercer and Chattanooga and not the second ambulance company of Ohio. Yeah, so today we're going to be taking a look at some of the most diabolical teams that were ever forced to lace up a pair of cleats in college football. For many decades between the late 19th and early 20th century, college football was merely an extracurricular activity for students who were often pursuing military or industrial careers. Organization only existed to a certain degree, with the formation of the NCAA taking place in 1910 after 330 players died due to on-field injuries. While the goal of the NCAA was to make the sport safer and more uniform, regulations on scheduling were really not a thing since the sport was still considered to just be an extracurricular activity, meaning that during this time, the schools that pride themselves on athletic prowess had the opportunity to pad stats in the most hilariously stupid way imaginable. Before I go into the detail of how weird some of these are, I do want to say that the mindset back in the early 20th century was a little different than it was now. Because college football was viewed as an extracurricular, scheduling teams that were way inferior was less of trying to beat up easier opponents and more of just playing the team down the road for travel restrictions, financial restrictions, and things of that sort. Like in 1897, Illinois played against the Chicago Dental School. Okay, a college team played against another college team that just specializes in a different field of study. I'm sure that in 1897, that wasn't that weird. That kinda not really would be like LSU playing UAB today. You know, it'll still be lopsided, but it's not that serious. While the skill gap did exist between the big brands and the smaller schools, it was generally fine to play against smaller colleges due to a common consensus for sportsmanship not really existing. To the fans, you were just playing the team up the road. If you're outraged about it, then stop. This is football, not the military. But for every team up the road, you had college football powerhouses playing against high school teams, railroad companies, tennis clubs, and even foreign countries. So without further ado, let's get into some of the weirdest schools that teams have ever put on their schedule. And we can start with the times when schools just played against their own students? How this isn't considered a conspiracy is beyond me, but I guess when you remember how little this mattered in the early days, it makes a lot more sense. There were multiple times where schools would just put their football teams against a group of scrimmage squads of non-student athletes from their own school. Vanderbilt famously did this in 1890 when they played a team of graduate students named the Vanderbilt Graduates. While these students were technically from Nashville Peabody Normal School, the school's existence was to develop graduates into becoming teachers. Since the school did eventually merge with Vanderbilt, I am counting it for this category. This was the first game in Vanderbilt history, with the Commodores winning 40-0. Another instance of this was in 1904 when Purdue scheduled a matchup against the Purdue alumni. This was the first of several questionable games on the Purdue schedule that season, with the alumni squad actually coming away with a 6-2 victory. Jumping forward a little bit, in 1925, LSU played a squad of freshmen titled the LSU Freshmen, where the upperclassmen won 6-0. This trend of schools playing themselves happened quite a bit, mostly during years when teams were first being established, so I can't harp on it too hard. The next category of weird opponents are non-football athletic clubs. Another weird scheduling trend during this time was when schools would schedule opponents that either didn't have football teams or specialized in an entirely different sport. The biggest weird instance of this is the Bacardi Bowl. The Bacardi Bowl was a game that was played 7 times between the years of 1907 and 1946. The idea was that the Cuban government would finance college football games between southern U.S. teams and various Cuban schools to take place at Cuba's annual National Sports Festival in Havana. The first of these saw LSU taking on the University of Havana, where the Tigers won 56-0. The second saw Tulane take on the squad from the Cuban Athletic Club, who actually did end up winning this one 11-0. One of these Cuban teams stands out more than the rest, however, and that's the Vedado Tennis Club, who played against Florida in 1912. The Gators handily won the game 28-0. While we're on the topic of schools playing against foreign countries, we can talk about the many times that this has happened in college football as well. It wasn't uncommon for northern schools to play against other schools from Canada in the early 20th century. Harvard did this a lot at one point, but eventually spread to other programs like Michigan and Vermont, who played Canadian schools like Windsor and Ogdensburg AA in 1929. Mississippi College won a game against the National Autonomous University of Mexico in Mexico City. Jumping way later to 1989, the College of William and Mary squared up against the Japan All-Stars in Yokohama, Japan. In 1992, UCF played against the Russian national team and won 43-6. Yeah, I'm shocked they were still doing these type of games this late into the century. I guess if basketball can still do it, then why not? Our next category is teams who scheduled schools that aren't even colleges. The YMCA is a repeat victim in this category, with dozens of its great facilities playing against schools like South Carolina, Michigan State, Texas A&M, Pittsburgh, USC, LSU, Iowa State, Nebraska, and several others. In 1944, Auburn played against the 4th Infantry School from Fort Benning, Georgia, winning that game 7-0. Nebraska played a game against the Omaha Balloon School. Nebraska played a game against the Omaha Balloon School in 1918. It was incredibly common to see college football teams play against high schools in the early 20th century, with one of the funniest games being when Washington lost to Lincoln High of Tacoma. There are so many other instances of high schools playing college teams that it's actually hilarious. Our second to last category is college teams versus the common man. These are all hilarious picks because no, we're not even talking about schools playing other assembled teams or institutions. These are just flat out laughable. Coming in hot is the Kentucky Wildcats, who played a game against the QNC Railroad Company in 1902. Just a few years, the Alabama Crimson Tide would easily defeat the monstrous powerhouse that was the 2nd Ambulance Company of Ohio. Yeah, that's right, baby. Hang the banner. Roll Tide. We showed those ambulance drivers who's boss. Yeah! My personal favorite of these is just listed as Oklahoma versus the town of Sulphur. This legit sounds like a Supreme Court case. Oklahoma versus the town of Sulphur? That sounds like something I would learn in a media law class, not a football game. UCLA once took on the crew down at the USS Idaho. Maryland played and lost to the Chemical Warfare Service in 1918. Could you imagine being the manager at your local Firestone, going on about your day, and then halfway through a tire balancing, the mailman shows up with a letter from the University of Georgia saying, "Dear Firestone, please consider playing football against us at Sanford Stadium on September 20th. And then they just show up ready to play. This type of stuff is absolutely unfathomable. And it gets worse. Our last category of this video will simply be titled, That Ain't Right. Can you believe that during some points in America's history, an athletic director thought that it would be a good idea to do, in good faith, schedule his football team to play against a school of impaired people? Can you believe that happened more than once? What do you mean that Texas and Texas A&M both played the Texas school for the deaf and dumb in back-to-back seasons? Same with Tennessee. Why did they play against the Tennessee school for the deaf? Michigan too. Wake Forest lost to a blind school. This gets worse when you remember that the reason Wake Forest couldn't defend against them was because this team invented the huddle. Oh! Thank you all for watching another exciting episode of the Pigskin Parrot. I really appreciate you guys' support. I just want to remind everybody that we are officially near the halfway point of getting to 1,000 subscribers. I could not have done it without you guys, and if you want to help me get to that goal, you can go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below the video. Make sure you click the little bell icon so you can get updates whenever a new episode of the Pigskin Parrot releases. Also, don't forget to follow the official Pigskin Parrot Instagram. I have linked that down in the description below. College football season is officially right around the corner. We have less than a month and we're going to have games starting this week, and I can't wait to get you some more topical videos coming soon. Let me know in the comments what you want me to talk about when it comes to college football's illustrious history. My name is Preston McElhaney. Thank you for watching.